Welcome to the Zen Castle. Today we're going into details surrounding the elusive Zen Buddhist road to Nirvana, along with the Eightfold Path to Enlightenment or illumination. If English is your second language, or if you're listening from Asia, I'll speak slow and clear so you can understand. Therefore, I will explain these foundational teachings such as Enlightenment's eight-way path in a somewhat simple way, and if you diligently follow this teaching until the end, I promise I will give you the base elements of becoming a Zen Buddhist master, someone that succeeds in an actual pathway to seeing the Buddhist form of heaven on earth, namely Nirvana. Prior to discussing this journey to Nirvana, it's important for you to understand that the original Buddha, who was a prince that lived 2,500 years ago by the name of Siddartha Gautama, this young Buddha or young illuminated one, never taught that Nirvana was an afterlife experience similar to the heaven of the Christians. Rather, he instructed his disciples they could achieve a form of heaven on earth through the regular practice of sacrificial and diligent mindfulness and deep meditation. Said in a slightly different way, what Buddha Siddartha taught about Nirvana is that it is a place consisting of an ongoing mental condition of total happiness and tranquility on earth, not a drifting off after death into an eternal experience of angelic bliss. Incidentally, the title of Buddha does not mean deity or Lord, but is rightly translated as enlightened one or awakened one. Sometimes you'll hear people say, Lord Buddha. That is incorrect and delusionary. The Buddha never wanted to be considered a deity or a Lord. He was rather against seeing the masses dedicating themselves to any god and consider that a practice of weak-minded people and a barrier to harmony and living awakened. Today, there are literally over a dozen types of Buddhist branches. Contrary to popular belief, just as in all the denominations of Christianity, Buddhism has their own various branches, types, and teachings. As a contrary example, Christianity, Catholicism, Mormonism, and the many other derivations of churches that follow Jesus, if added together, the denominations would exceed 5,000. In Buddhism, it's not that drastic of a number, but there are at least a dozen currently operating branches, sects, or temple variation teaching their own unique style of Buddhism. Okay, let me say that again. There are at least a dozen currently operating branch, sects, or temple variations that are teaching their own unique type of Buddhism. Within these 12 or so ways of following the Buddha, let's say, through whatever temple you select, please note that there are three main branches. They will either correctly teach or possibly dilute the original truth of what the first Buddha Siddartha taught in Nepal over 2.5 millennium ago. Here is a hint. Avoid temples that construct and display large statues of the Buddha that everyone bows, prays, or chants to that statue or that proxy image. The Buddhist branches can be divided into Theravada, Mahayana, and Vajrayana. The Theravada branch is primarily found in the Southeastern Asia countries of Burma, Cambodia, Indonesia, Laos, Singapore, and Thailand. Then the second branch of Buddhism, namely Mahayana, which directly relates to the Zen Buddhists that primarily live in Japan, Vietnam, and Korea. Lastly, the Vajrayana branch of Buddhism, which is rooted in both China and Tibet. Incidentally, this is the branch of Buddhism that the Dalai Lama regularly teaches his followers. What we teach is the Mahayana or Japanese system of Buddhism, where we counsel the Zen student how to achieve mental clarity, detach from desire, practice deletion of wants and wishes, understand impermanence, and practice long sessions of intense mindfulness and detachment, thereby leading to the potential of reaching nirvana in this current lifetime. We follow the original teachings of the Buddha, who was known for being dispassionate about religiosity, career, money, and wishing for anything, which is completely opposite to the passion of the American goal-driven society. Other than basic necessities, Buddha Siddartha allowed no room for your ambitions and desires. That's right, no goal planning or ambition for the future. This was the beginning of the Buddha's initial teaching on the life's noble truths, that all systems of belief are harmful, all faiths are a barrier to the present reality of suffering, and all praying and hoping for a desire to be filled will further add to your suffering. An interesting point is that Buddha was neither a theist or an atheist. And although he didn't believe in God at the same time, he rejected the viewpoints of those who were atheists. He said their denial of God was like a mosquito biting an elephant's foot to try and injure it. He also said that those who were immature will go out and find another idol to replace God with. Many times we see videos of Buddhists bowing down to a statue of Siddartha Buddha, praying or chanting to him and acting as most religious folks do, in awe of a mighty eternal being. These are usually Buddhists from the Vajrayana or Theravada branches of Buddhism, not Zen Buddhists living in the Mahayana ways. We do not teach any bowing to, worshiping, or chanting, praying to any Buddha, Siddartha statue, or any other Buddhist statue for that matter. If you want to be an accurate Buddhist. You must understand your modern practice of worshiping and bowing to the Buddha's image goes directly against his original teaching. He never claimed to be deity, and he never wanted to be bowed to or worshiped in any way. These are all practices that started in the mid-1700s during a time when the Buddhist masters wanted to be intellectual and write doctrine. Sadly, part of that written doctrine by these masters in the mid-1700s included group praying, chanting in mantras, and bowing to statues of the Buddha. In essence, the 18th century Theravada and Vajrayana Buddhist masters and scholars created a form of inaccurate religion currently practiced, and most importantly, it's a form of a religiosity that the original Buddha would shun. Let me repeat that. In essence, the 18th century Theravada and Vajrayana Buddhist masters and scholars created a form of inaccurate religion currently practiced today, and most importantly, it is a form of religiosity that the original Buddha would shun, because he clearly stated when he was alive that he did not want to be considered a lord nor to be the object of adoration. He was against group worship of any holy object or God, and against any belief in an eternal heaven or leader of heaven. So, if you own a statue of Buddha in your home, for example, it's fine. But when you start praying to that statue and asking for answers to deep desires and hopes, then if the Buddha were alive today, he would stop you and say that he is just a man and not to be worshipped or considered a granter of wishes. Please do not place the statue of Buddha or a picture of him, nor a picture of the Dalai Lama in a prominent place or altar to later look at in adoration or pray to. Okay, please do not put your hands together in this fashion and ask for that Buddha statue or even that picture of the Dalai Lama to give you a wish, a hope, or future desire, because they won't. And the original Buddha was vehemently against that type of practice to any god, any type of god, or any type of princely demagogue. The Buddha would also be strictly against the New Age law of attraction or manifestation, because embedded within that practice is a desire for more material wealth or wanting better love relationships and other desires. This methodology of deep emotional yearning by demanding the universe both hear and obey is contrary to true Buddhism's removal of desire, and contrary to avoiding worldly materialism and detaching from physical or spiritual passion. Incidentally, do not discard any statues of the Buddha if you were previously praying to them, but rather enjoy and observe their craftsmanship and just make them a reminder to meditate. Having said that, I'd like to provide you with a brief overview of the foundational elements inside the Eightfold Path to Nirvana, or the 8 ways to illumination and enlightenment. I will briefly teach you the 4 foundational elements that are prerequisites of the Buddha's actual 8-method path to enlightenment. Okay, they are realities. These are the 4 noble truths, rather than philosophical viewpoints or proposals to accept or reject. They are realities. Rather, the Buddha taught they were the realities of life, such as scientific elements similar to gravity, magnetism, or the law of thermodynamics. He strictly suggested against being ignorant of these 4 concrete truths, the 4 noble truths. They represent objective, authentic aspects of life and are not an array of 4 parts of life that you select to believe because of an internal system of morals. Regardless of how you feel about these truths, they are nonetheless an actual form of reality affecting the collective world population. So please allow me to explain. The first truth is called suffering, or dukkha, and it is both highly complicated and highly simple. It means suffering basically exists as a result of a desire or a want. In the second noble truth, that is a single word, desire, or better translated into English, it is called a thirst, which is the entirety of the second noble truth. And the first noble truth is from that thirst, that desire. First noble truth means the result is a life of suffering. Within the first noble truth related to pain, discomfort, suffering, or dukkha, there is a core value that includes the truth related to what humans live for, everything they want or hope for, almost every aspect you can think of in life, whether that is pain, pleasure, eating healthy, eating junk food, or owning a new car. All of life's physical and mental activities in one way or another either start with suffering or end with suffering. Within the second noble truth, the Buddha simply redefines the word pain or suffering from the original Indian Sanskrit. Then he said something clearer, translated into the word thirst instead of desire. Thirst, such as in the example of thirsting after something or yearning for something. Example, I thirst for the touch of my lover, or I desire to live in a safer neighborhood. Maybe even I desire to have a better career. All could be considered thirsts that lead to suffering. So the second noble truth actually precedes the first truth in correct sequence, because the second truth is the reality of thirst, or that desire leading to suffering, which is the first truth. I say it should actually be the second truth because it's the result of the first truth. Regardless, and shockingly, the first reality of life, the truth of dukkha, okay, is actually a word used in Buddhism to denote the profound reality of life itself, namely that we rarely get what we want and therefore will suffer as a result. And even if we get what we want, we always end up losing it one day. This is the first noble truth of Buddhism, loss and suffering, pain and stress is the result of simply existing, and the second truth is like the first in that it is the reason why the first truth exists. The root cause, namely desire and thirsting for something, is the entirety of the second truth. Interestingly, the first noble truth of Buddhism is much deeper and darker than most people realize. It teaches that even what we may believe is happiness is only a delayed form of unhappiness. Pleasure is only a temporary band-aid for eventual discomfort. And likewise, achievement is only a mask for failure and eventual loss. We are therefore trapped, this is a reality now, in this endless loop of dukkha, or suffering, as a result of having wants or desires. The question then arises, what did the Buddha do to improve his situation? What would he recommend for our current situation of having wants and then the resulting suffering and loss? He would advise us to point our mind in the direction of achieving a form of heaven on earth, achieving nirvana and extinguishing dukkha, which can only be achieved by completely ignoring all wants and desires. We are now upon the third noble truth, which is the reality of nirvana. That's right. In essence, it is the cure for the first and second realities of life related to thirst and suffering, desire, and dukkha. The good news of a sad, perpetual state of suffering caused by wishing and wanting is that there truly is a possible cure we can administer to ourselves. That cure is the reality of nirvana found in, encompassed by this third noble truth. Remarkably, it is one of the most wonderful and comforting realities we are faced with on the planet Earth today. Yet few truly realize this amazing potential for tranquility and comfort on earth, for removal of all suffering. The third truth is the claim that it is possible for a human being to bring dukkha to an end completely and permanently. This truth was recorded in history as the Buddha's actual life experience after his awakening under the Bodhi tree 2,500 years ago. In that location in Nepal, northeastern India. It was there and then that he discovered a mental and physical reality that was free from all thirst, all desire, and all dukkha. He realized and encapsulated the third noble truth, the reversal of all of life's discomfort. Through the mastery of mindfulness and diligence to achieve a true spiritual awakening, the Buddha discovered a perfect reality that is always and everywhere filled with being mindful of the present moment, waking up from a bad dream, then realizing nirvana on earth because of deprivation and rejection of want and desire, even rejecting future hopes. This was like waking up from a bad dream for the Buddha when he awakened and was mindful of every fraction of every second in every moment where he was living in deprivation of want and realizing nirvana on earth. Being able to truly explain nirvana would be like trying to define a mystical form of heaven. There are no honest words to describe the luminous, content, and tranquil state of being in a current day nirvana, or current day state of being extinguished of desire. For the Buddha Siddartha, that luminous state of reality was not a brief, spectacular encounter, but rather an ongoing way of being. He had become nirvana, or become someone that was extinguished of any desire. Amazingly, the Sanskrit word for nirvana translates in English to the compound word to extinguish. Okay, that's nirvana. The Buddha extinguished himself. Okay, it also means to terminate. Okay, this is a royal Zen reality that if you can terminate or extinguish, okay, just like the Buddha did, extinguish your incessant wanting, extinguish hoping, desiring, and goal planning, then the mystical result is that you begin to experience nirvana and will be miraculously free from any suffering as you awaken to an altered reality. So when the Buddha arrived at nirvana, he had already worked to extinguish himself of all want and desire. He extinguished himself of thirst, or the second truth, then entered nirvana, or the third truth. Nirvana, by definition, is the end of all desire and thirst, and is not something to be desired either, because it will be the natural flow of what the universe provides to the diligent student of the Zen ways. Now, the fourth noble truth is really not a teaching in and of itself. Rather, it's like a gateway into how the first Buddha instructed his original disciples to achieve this blessed enlightenment and nirvana. Therefore, the fourth noble truth is simply a sign written down that says there exists an eightfold pathway to enlightenment. Therefore, this final fourth truth tells us to study more toward enlightenment and nirvana. Very wise the Buddha was. He pointed us to this fourth truth and told us to study more toward enlightenment and nirvana. In essence, this fourth noble truth, this which means the eightfold pathway to enlightenment, in essence, it's a teaching to undergo the lessons found within an intricate yet simple study created by the Buddha to enter nirvana. The 8 ways that Zen students can tap into the eventual reality of an enlightened form of nirvana. Each of these 8 Buddhist wheel sections represent Buddhist directives to live by. This is the original teaching of the first Buddha regarding the noble eightfold path to enlightenment. If you can understand and practice these 8 areas, you will have a very good grasp of realizing Nirvana and the happiness that comes through true Zen Buddhism. I will go so far as to say that to master these 8 connections to Nirvana would be to master the removal of all suffering in your life. In essence, you would master life itself. You would become a Zen master and rise above the mass delusion taught by society. You would become awakened from what the Buddha called sleepwalking through life. You will be unlike 99% of the world that lives in ways that create suffering from having so many wants and desires. The Buddha's 8-fold path to enlightenment was an ancient daily compass that we can actually live by in current times. It's a beacon in the dark that teaches how to live the right way and minimize, if not eliminate, dukkha for yourself and eventually become enlightened. The first section of the path or journey to Nirvana, as you can see, is having the right view, which interpreted means having the wisdom to clearly see through your practice of incorrect words and delusional actions. Within this path, your grasp of reality is outstanding, as is your knowledge of no true self and no permanence in life. You keenly understand how your actions affect others and the world around you. When we teach no true self, that means having no selfishness in your heart. The true Zen student should have no true self. That's encompassed in this right view. No selfishness means you're not like the rest of the money-grabbing, sex-crazed world, okay? It is extremely hard to achieve. If you are beginning to master these pathways to nirvana. Your Buddhist worldview must be opposite of pop culture or modern society. For example, our culture celebrates financial success as a great life path. You won't see that on this 8-fold wheel, but they would put their own wheel up and consider financial success a great life pathway. And they encourage everyone to take as much as they can in this life and buy as much as they want. The Buddha says the opposite. And that is fame, money, and all its temptations is a total mass deception. Having the wisdom to know who is deceiving you and when you are being lied to, having discernment is contained in this essential spoke or path of right view. In essence, you have great judgment and discernment of the characters of those you meet, and you know how to avoid certain venues or clientele. Following right view is right intention, the second pathway on the road to enlightenment, and it is the mystical cure for dukkha or suffering, and it's accomplished through right intentions and right motivations. Okay? Right intention is this path of the wheel that we're talking about now. The Buddha was a prophet. He saw man was very sick and that he was suffering from an illness named desire or thirst that led to suffering. He said the best course of action is to try to cure yourself and others of this illness, the illness of having wants. Once you see this as a sickness, okay, that has been injected into your mind by a corrupt society and realize it has caused so much personal pain, you will have the right insight and right intentions. If you look at the wheel, this also means you have the right motivations along with clean and honest ways that you speak, act, and live. To be mystically cured of suffering or dukkha, however, it requires correct reprogramming within your mindfulness and spirituality. Sometimes you will need to undergo spiritual cleansings as you focus on totally removing the compound desires of I want, I need, or I hope from your speech. You have to eat, sleep, and live in ways and through means that eliminate your wanting for anything other than food, good food, clothing, good clothing, and a nice home. Finally, right intention is at its core a Zen Buddhist rule of freeing your mind of any evil intention, evil speech, or evil action. This is a perfect segue into the next two pathways to Nirvana. They are mysteriously woven into having the right intention. Namely, those are having excellent morals through right speech and right actions. These are mysteriously woven into having the right intention. Namely, they are right speech and right actions, which will greatly improve your morality. Because any grand arrival at the gate of Nirvana will always mean you understand these intricate pathways of speaking and acting in ways that are honorable. For example, if you are evil in action or mental intention or within your words, for example, vulgarity, complaints, insults, sarcasms, even evil writing, then Nirvana can never be reached if you're practicing these things. Through your words and by your tongue, you can either destroy someone to hell or promote someone to heaven. This also means you never boast, lie, or gossip. Having the right speech and right actions has the root meaning that requires the Buddhist student never to say anything that hurts others, and at the same time to always serve others and work for the good of others. And it also means having a spirit of universal compassion and generosity. Always remember that the path to Nirvana is not only achieved during ongoing, lengthy sessions of mindfulness and meditation, but it is also achieved through lengthy sessions of living somewhat of an angel, like somewhat of an angel on this earth. You are therefore continually mindful of your words, your intentions, your actions, having clean and encouraging speech toward others, and you're living in an impeccable lifestyle free of any drug or alcohol use. You are living without the desire of anything, without selfishness, without social media, without goal setting, electronic calendars, and even without any hopes and dreams of a future better life. You are content in a daily awakened state of Zen mindful living. So our next pathway to nirvana and enlightenment is intricately tied into everything I've just mentioned. Namely, this is the path of having the right livelihood or right ways of acting and living. This includes directives to live by, such as being a mentor to the youth. Livelihood is an English word that goes far beyond just a career selection. Livelihood in English goes far beyond just considering as a career selection. This path is specifically intertwined with the having right actions, because without right actions, you will select a wrong livelihood and a wrong lifestyle, which in essence is livelihood. Right livelihood includes selecting lifestyles and careers that are directly related to contributing to society. If I could be so bold as to advise you, as a Zen student moving toward nirvana, you should not have livelihood or work that includes selling or distributing alcohol, firearms, drugs, or tobacco, nor in fields that involve slaughtering animals for mass food production, even jobs as a butcher in your local supermarket. Lastly, you should not select careers that exploit children, such as child acting or modeling, or careers for corporations that harm the environment, such as toxic water or air contamination from manufacturing. Regarding drugs and how they are taught by some online supposed Zen teachers, I must say this is downright deception to those trying to learn true Buddhism. Mainly I'm talking about teachers out there recommending magic mushrooms, LSD, or psilocybin products like mushrooms, mushroom-infused chocolates. I teach against the intake of these so-called magic mushrooms, and I also teach against the smoking of marijuana by the student or drinking alcohol, because this also includes desiring the drug or the drink, then wanting to get high or drunk from it, to get an effect from it. The Buddha, Siddartha, would consider that as foolishness and completely useless, even detrimental toward entering either enlightenment or a true awakening. He would never recommend or advise a student to destroy all their mindful work. That means your mind and thinking becomes degraded with substances like drugs or alcohol. These practices only set the student backward and farther from nirvana. They do not expand the spiritual mind at all. Drinks and drugs are scientifically proven to alter the mind and memory negatively, not positively. Someone just said that mushrooms are the recommended drug of choice for the Buddhist to achieve better meditation and mindfulness. I say that is a total lie and widespread deception to the Buddhist community. What I can say is that mushrooms will give you more mental images, such as geometric figures or daydreams of psychedelic colors. These images, symbols, and colors will have no connection to your spiritual life, however. And the entire experience of taking those mushrooms, that drug-induced high, it is useless and unhealthy, to say the least. Again, there is no connection between a mushroom high accomplished through eating psilocybin mushrooms, no connection to a higher state of mindfulness at all. You do not achieve anything other than a head trip that delays any entry into nirvana or enlightenment. All you get is high, and all you produce is gibberish and silly thoughts. One of the goals of meditation is to discard the self as you go deeper and deeper into true, silent, meditative sessions of detachment. Drugs enhance selfishness, not detachment from self or selflessness. And overall, drugs are a bad medical remedy for a student wanting to achieve outstanding mindfulness leading to a realization of nirvana. I'd also like to add that ingesting a drug like psilocybin-laced mushrooms is undoubtedly the total opposite of what the Buddha taught in 4 of his 8-fold paths to nirvana. Okay? And I'm including alcohol and popping pills and smoking marijuana and any drug in this list. Namely, if you drink alcohol, even a supposedly simple, innocent glass of wine or 2, if you drink alcohol or take drugs, even a supposedly little bit of a marijuana intake, okay, you are breaking, and let's not even mention eating mushrooms. If you're doing that, you are breaking the heavenly paths, the nirvana paths of right livelihood, right action, right effort, and right intention. We are now on the 6th of 8 paths toward living a life of heaven on earth. And that path is interconnected to another 1 or 2 or more important paths. We are talking about the path of right effort and how it's tied to, let's for example start with saying right intention and right action are kissing cousins of right effort, right intention, and right action. Connected to this godly, noble path of right effort is the truth that includes at its core an important teaching that your life directive should be concentrated on an effort, on a need to understand and practice essential Buddhist truths along with their interpretations from original Indian or Sanskrit writings. Incidentally, I personally attempt to always deliver truthful interpretation and instruction to the student, which will be very close to mimicking what the Buddha said about 2.5 millennium ago. We are teaching the true Buddhist spiritual life here, one that resists evil and embraces what the Buddha taught about eliminating all desire and achieving Nirvana. What I advise you to do as a great student of Buddhism is to take and completely understand the journey to enlightenment, understand this wheel, then imitate these descriptions of what the Buddha taught until you are gradually transformed into an awakened human being yourself. That is key to this pathway of right effort, having the spiritual willpower, and diligence to focus on your journey to Nirvana, right effort toward Nirvana. I'd like to also share with you that although we're going down the right side of the Buddhist wheel image, it is unadvisable to follow this eightfold wheel in a strict way or through analytical and sequential methods. Although several paths interconnect with each other, it's important to note that this is not a sequential wheel or a teaching where you must accomplish one path before setting your sights on the next one. Please understand, each path is mysteriously connected in some way with one or more other pathways, intertwined in a mystical tapestry of spirituality. Doesn't that sound beautiful? A mystical tapestry of spirituality. Which brings us to the last and final two paths to enlightenment, namely right concentration and right mindfulness. And they are completely interconnected by energy to almost every other path in the journey to Nirvana. I'd like to begin by giving you a somewhat logical guideline for the time you should spend in meditation. I'd advise the true Zen Buddhist student to give meditation 25% of your 24-hour day, or 6 hours of your day. This requires a life where you are not bound to an outside career office for 8 hours or more daily, along with commuting to and from work and doing childcare. As in anything worthwhile, if the sufficient time is not invested, failure is certain. If meditation is 6 hours of the day or more, then you're left with 18 hours to live your life with your eyes wide open or sleeping. And it gives you many chances to be out there in the world and spread positive energy and happiness and good karma to the people of the world. So you see, arriving at the complicated yet achievable destination of Nirvana will require a practical life of daily living with Zen Buddhist components of honesty, compassion, generosity, and love, but it will also require a life of at least 6 or more hours in meditation and mindfulness. Obviously, there is a direct relationship between having great concentration, right? One of these pathways, along with the pathway of mindfulness, having great concentration in meditation, there's a direct relationship with that concentration and having one's eyes closed. So if you can be in deep meditation, eyes closed, at least 6 or more hours a day, then your path to nirvana will become much clearer and quicker compared to students not putting in the time to be successful in such a worthy endeavor. The endeavor to remove suffering altogether. One benefit of lengthy meditation is that you'll need less sleep at the end of the day. Right concentration also means to avoid thoughts and venues that will distract your mind. We're talking about right concentration, a key pathway here. Avoid thoughts and venues that will distract your mind. Okay, lustful thoughts, bar locations, venues for gambling, things like this. When you are concentrating with a clear mind, then you are truly mindful and aware of your thoughts and feelings. Concentration is enhanced. The mind becomes clearer and you become overall more aware of your internal thoughts and emotions. Right mindfulness can include a calculated focus on your breathing. It may include regularly saying a primordial Om, or even a time of sitting outside under a tree, observing nature as you stay aware of your body's senses. During those 6 meditative hours, you can also be mindful of the room that you're in, observing the colors on the wall or room temperature. For example, this is a time of the day when you are home and not in a business, store, or even a car. Okay, regardless of whether your eyes are open or closed, you are mindfully living. Example, making a vegan meal for yourself in total silence. The Buddha tells us that through right mindfulness and concentration, there is a shift in consciousness. And through this shift, we can realize the beginning of enlightenment, which he compared to waking up from sleep. The original Buddha is discussing a total transformation of one's reality, which begins and ends in one's conscious spiritual concentration, and also one's control over negative thoughts during right mindfulness. If you can miraculously achieve this state of being, then obviously this is an end of sleep. The end of desiring or wanting anything, also an end to caring about opinions or labels we've placed on ourselves. You simply are mindful and content in the current state of Zen peace that you are in. The most important starting point about entering any path to enlightenment is to simply jump onto the wheel of awakening and stay on it, no matter how difficult it might seem. This should be your first and only desire, if you were to have a desire as a Buddhist, okay, to live in the way of the Buddha and to always be connected to this 8-fold path to Nirvana. You may even want You may even want to find an online image of this eightfold wheel, then print it out and place it in your meditation area. So, to reiterate, these two final paths on the journey to Nirvana exist as the spiritual foundation of the entire journey. Without the correctly practiced mindfulness and the right concentration during that mindful state of being, without success in this mental root of all Buddhism, then there is no arrival at either an awakening or any future form of nirvana. This is where the world's population, even good Buddhists, fail to achieve a condition of nirvana while still alive on earth. It's because their concentration and mindfulness, those two sections of that wheel, crucial spiritual sections, their concentration and mindfulness, the world's population is not even close to 6 hours out of a 24-hour day. For most practitioners, it's rarely more than an hour. Most so-called spiritualists section off and fraction off their mindfulness to a small subset of the day, which will surely lead to any path being misunderstood or blocked because there is not enough time spent in mindfulness and concentration. That means if you're doing 10 other things for those remaining 23 hours out of the day and only meditated for an hour, then you have sectioned your life into only being spiritual and mindful for just a fraction of the day, resulting in a state of perpetual trial and error, attempt and failure to achieve enlightenment. Again, mindfulness needs to be a very large part of the day, far more than just a couple hours. A key point here is that most folks are mixing the pathways of mindfulness and right concentration shown into their busy day of achieving, having wants, staying on task toward goals, or earning more. It's like oil and water. Both are unable to mix. Contrary to a true state of Zen. Do not mix contrary belief systems, such as Zen Buddhism, with worldly belief systems such as greed, passion, desire, goal setting, or wanting anything. Now, here's a big dose of reality. You may not like hearing this, but enlightenment and nirvana also includes no desire to have sex. That's right. If you are sexually desiring someone, even if it's your own spouse, you are living in sexual thirst, and the Buddha would consider this sensual lifestyle as living in the ways of a weak-minded commoner. You may not like hearing this either, but you will never achieve nirvana if you are, listen carefully, regularly angry, lie to others, cheat on your taxes or anything else, speak down to others arrogantly, are violent in any way, or have a sarcastic and witty tongue toward others. Acting this way goes directly against the paths on the wheel, our beautiful Buddhist wheel, the paths of right speech, right intention, and even right action. Also, enlightenment never includes someone that is focused on wealth accumulation or career advancement. They are focused on diligence toward career, and they can never diligently serve both that career and the universe and Buddhism and extinguishing wants and desires. So, let me say that in a slightly different way. Enlightenment never includes someone that's focused on wealth accumulation or career advancement instead of diligence in meditation. Additionally, right action that we're discussing on this wheel, the pathway to nirvana of right action, gives no room for internet entertainment either. Okay? Neither online YouTube, online smut, nor not even going physically to a comedy show or maybe even a Las Vegas show or an amusement park like Disneyland. I know you wouldn't like to hear this. All of which is jam-packed with wants or thirsting toward having a good time. Suffice it to say, the Noble Path and the Eightfold Journey is not easy at all. It may seem uncomfortable at first, but it ends in the ultimate destination, in living a heavenly Zen peace life without suffering, almost as if you were an angel tranquilly living on the planet. This is a life of abstinence and deprivation from pleasures, and only a few highly spiritual people within this hedonistic world can ever achieve nirvana. Nonetheless, I think it is a content and happy life that we must put our mental energy into. I teach that this Shangri-La can be eventually achieved, especially if you are a student of true Zen Buddhism. We should therefore place our mental efforts on getting to this ultimate spiritual level. When you live by the Buddhist protocol I just explained, you will undoubtedly become more magnificent, and a radiant grace will start to surround you. An actual aura of positive energy appears around your luminous being, and at the same time, you become a temple of absolute contentment and eternal bliss. You become someone that figured out the path to nirvana. Imagine that. Someone that became like the wise ancient Buddha, the awakened one, the enlightened one. May we all follow these spiritual paths and crack the code to entering enlightenment. May we unlock the universal mystery of becoming like the Buddha. Then experience our own perpetual state of heaven on earth, our own present day nirvana.